Hey, everybody. How's it going? It's Philip. We're back with another great guest. Somebody I've been wanting to bring on to this channel for quite some time now. I've been really fortunate to know Hugo Luna since approximately 94, fall 94, spring 95, when we both ended up, for some reason, two Mexican kids from the Southwest. He's from Arizona. I'm from West Texas, El Paso. We found ourselves in paradise uh, in Hawaii. And we've just known some incredibly great people since then. And fortunately, we've been able to keep in touch for many years, thanks to social media, thanks to a channel that we're on. But Hugo's got a great story. In fact, as you know, we all have stories to tell. But it was one day when Hugo, we were talking about something on our thread, that he said something that really piqued my curiosity, and it led to a great story that I've been wanting him to tell. So without further ado, Hugo, welcome to the Greater Than Good. How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you. Thank you. Uh, Kind of humbled that you reached out and said, "Hey, I'd like to hear about your story." It's not a very interesting story, but I
Oh no,
think that
I think that's where you're
yeah,
wrong. I think that's where you're wrong. Um, and everyone, he's being humble. Okay, let's put it that way. I mean, in your own right, you've done so much. I mean, since we were kids in college, and discovering the world and just making our way and carving out our little niche and things like that. I think that one of the coolest things about being in this group, in this little chat group that we find ourselves in, this thread, and a bunch of guys from college that we've just we've kept in touch with, fraternity brothers. And we have a lot of discussions about everything. And thankfully it's encrypted, because, some guys could possibly face jail time for the content that they share. But I think that it was during one of those conversations in this long thread, right? I mean, if you unraveled it, it'd probably circle the earth. But you said something, and it was something that of course I want to talk about today. And it was, and I think I'm quoting, everybody should get their ass kicked at least once in their life. And I forget what we were talking about, but
yeah, who knows?
yeah, because things happen pretty fast on that thread, right? So elaborate on that, because it led into you sharing a personal story that you might not have, that a lot of people on that thread, and we're really close to a lot of these guys, they didn't even know about this.
Oh yeah,
I remember now, it was Pete, because he couldn't taste and he couldn't smell.
oh
That's what it was. He couldn't taste and he couldn't smell because of his chemo and his radiation. Another buddy of ours, going through that. And then that led to COVID. And then you chimed in saying, yeah, it happened to me too. I lost my sense of taste and I lost my sense of smell. So go for it. Now it's on you.
you got to get your ass kicked somehow. Like it's either going to be like emotionally, physically. For me, it was like it was physical ass kicking. It was literally like physical ass kicking. But um, it was something that I guess at the end of the day just ended up changing my life because um, I guess going back to like how you even found out about this story. Yeah, unfortunately, one of our friends, he got diagnosed with cancer, and he's going through chemo, and he loses his taste of smell and taste, and he chimes in, he's like, I can't taste anything, and I told him, I was like, look, yeah, I've been through it, I've been through it. Hopefully, it comes back. I was like, I lost my sense of taste and smell for like 18 months, but that's all I said. Like I didn't even throw this out there.
And I'm
And
thinking 18 months. Hang on a second, because
yeah,
I'm in the context of the pandemic and COVID, and people lose that while they're kind of going through it, and then it comes back to them.
yeah,
But I'm thinking 18 months. What the hell, dude?
yeah. So it was 18 months that I lost my sense of smell and taste. believe it or not, everything tasted like a vanilla milkshake, dude. Like everything
Wow.
tasted
I think of worse things,
because,
man.
because I think when I was in the hospital, it was literally like the first thing that I ate after I came out of surgery. And like they didn't want me eating solid foods. So the first thing, I've got this tray of just mush in front of me, like how like do you have to blend the ground beef? like
Yeah. Oh God.
I mean, it's just like mush in front of me. So the only thing I had was the vanilla milkshake. And I think either my taste, my brain, something was like, okay,
This
we're
is
gonna
what food
program
is.
it. This is
This
this
is
is what
food
it's
now.
gonna be.
Thank God it wasn't
This
baby carrots.
is like this is what it's gonna be from now on, right? So, which I mean, I guess it could have been worse, but anyway, I chime in and I say, I lost my sense of taste for 18 months. And then somebody asks, well, what happened? Right? So I'm on the thread explaining, okay, this is what happened. So basically, I'm in Tucson, and there's so many like things led to me being in this situation. Uh, that when I think about now, like I shouldn't have even been there. Like I shouldn't have even been there in the first place. I was supposed to go
Right.
scuba diving that weekend,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
Mexico with some friends, and I was supposed to go scuba diving. And I basically said, you know what, I don't feel like going. I'm just gonna go hang out with some other friends and go drink in Tucson. So I don't go scuba diving. I meet up with some friends. We go to this restaurant in Tucson that basically like at night turns into a bar. And it's like a bar restaurant, and they take off all the tables, they set up a dance floor or whatever. But it was a really popular place with more Mexican crowd. I'm not going to name names, but
Yeah.
it was a very popular Mexican restaurant in Tucson, and
it could have been here in El Paso. You just described
yeah.
every.
And the guy that owns the restaurant is like from a well-known Tucson family, and they've got like a whole chain of restaurants in Tucson and whatever, right? So anyway, I end up and I'm there. I'm drinking with some friends, and uh, I'm probably at this point I'm probably about I'd say about just 25 years old, and just completely just a jerk, just arrogant, kind of full of myself.
Not
Like,
you. Come on, man. You're a sweetheart, dude. I can't even see that way.
no,
That's where the
no, no.
story goes
And
sideways.
thank you. But it was a very, I knew who I was, I recognize it now. I wasn't the nicest person in the world, and I was kind of a jerk, and and so we're at this bar, um, and we're drinking. I mean, and when I say like we're drinking, we're not having a couple of drinks. Like we're going crazy.
You're
Just
going on a
drinking.
sick one.
Yeah, like we're just going crazy, and I'm just pounding, like stupid 25-year-old, like just pounding just vodka, Red Bull vodkas, dude. Now I can't even say Red Bull vodka without getting like saliva in my mouth. You know what I'm saying? Like
The gag reflex starts to come in.
yeah, like instant spits, right? Uh, so anyway, so we're just pounding Red Bull vodkas, right? And I end up like on the dance floor dancing with these girls, and then they leave. They leave, and they say like, okay, bar's closed, whatever. And I had just gotten like a brand new drink, right? Like I'm not letting go of this thing. I'm not like, why are they serving alcohol 1 minute before they close the place? And right. And first, like there was this bouncer there who, for some reason, probably me being a jerk other times or whatever, the guy just didn't like me. Like there was just the guy just did not like me.
Mhm.
And he came up to me and he's like, you got to give me that drink. And he tries to rip the glass out of my hand and I won't like let go of it.
Give me that
And,
drink, Blue Eyes.
and I won't let go of it. And he's like, you got to give it to me. And I'm like, no, I'm not giving it to you. Like, I just got it. Let me pound it. Right. So I literally start pounding my Red Bull. And as I'm pounding it, he freaking rips it out of my hand. Right. And like,
Yeah.
he rips it out of my hand and he takes the drink and he turns around, puts it on the bar, like turns his back to me, puts it on the bar, turns around and takes a swing at me and hits me right square in the face, right on my nose, breaks my nose. Like I feel my nose just like crunch, right? And and I know that he had like some sort of ring or something, right? Because it wasn't just like, okay, he broke my nose, but there's literally like a deep cut on my face. Like there's literally a deep cut on my face. So he breaks my nose and he knocks me out. Like I fall face first onto basically like their concrete floor. And I hit their concrete floor with my forehead because I'm out, right? I'm out and I'm knocked out. Like I'm knocked out. So I don't know how long I am knocked out for. Like I remember trying to wake up and I just couldn't. I couldn't open my eyes. Like I couldn't open my eyes. And I remember like struggling, like open your eyes, open your eyes, open your eyes. And I couldn't open my eyes. And when I finally like somehow just like came to, when my friends grabbed me, which by the way, none of my friends saw what happened. They were all doing other stuff. I have no idea where they were. None of my friends saw this go down. All they did was see me on the floor. So they run over and they pick me up and they take me to the bathroom. And I'm in the bathroom and I'm like, I literally have no power in my legs. Like I can't stand. Like I can't stand and I'm in the bathroom and they're kind of holding me up and I'm washing my face, trying to get the blood off, but it doesn't stop. Like the blood does not stop coming.
And no one from the restaurant called an ambulance or medical assistance or anything like that?
Nothing. Nobody called. Nobody said anything. Nobody. In fact, after I went to the hospital, like the police interviewed me, asked me what happened. Then I filed a report. Police officers went to the restaurant, find out what happened, and a couple of days after I got home from the hospital, I was in the hospital for 4 days. One of the detectives from Tucson Police Department called me up and said, "Hey, we're not going to pursue this. Like, there's nothing here. We're not going to pursue this. This is what the restaurant people said happened, and but here's a police report if you want to call a lawyer." Like, and pursue this civilly, but there's nothing to be done criminally. Like, we're okay. So fine. But anyway, I'm in the bathroom getting cleaned up. I look at my face. My nose is literally like on the side of my face over here.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm like, I look at one of my buddies and I'm like, let's go. Like, let's go. Help me. Let's get out of here. He throws me in his car. And I basically tell him, I'm like, look, let's just go home. And he's like, no, you're crazy, dude. Like, I'm taking you to the hospital. Like, I'm taking you to the hospital. We roll into the emergency room. Like, there's other people waiting. And I think, big deal. I just had a broken nose. I'll sit down. I wait. People stop what they're doing. They're just like, holy crap, get this guy, throw him on the bed, and whatever, right? So they throw me on a bed and I'm just like, what? It's just broken nose. What's the big deal? Like, whatever. And the guy who's the doctor on shift, he comes in and looks at me and he's like, oh my God. He's like, I gotta call some people. I gotta find out, we gotta do an x-ray. I get the x-ray and whatever. And and the whoever's doing the X-ray, whatever, they're looking at the X-ray, and I go,
And the tech.
what's the deal? Like, are they gonna fix my nose? Is it broken? Whatever. And obviously it's broken. And she's like, yeah, you're not going home. And I said, what do you mean I'm not going home? It's just a broken nose. And she's like, you see this? And she shows me the X-ray, and there's literally like a spider web on my face and cranium, like emanating from my nose, right? It literally looks like a spider web. And I go, what the hell is that? And she goes, those are all breaks. And I'm like, holy crap, right? So then I get taken to my bed again, and I tell my buddy, I'm like, dude, you just go home, man.
Who was the bouncer? Was it Mike Tyson?
Apparently the guy was a boxer.
Oh,
and he got me. Apparently the guy was a boxer, and he got me. Like, he just got me clean shot. I mean, he's completely sober, and you just like sucker punch a drunk, like whatever. Yeah. And anyway, I end up getting like 73 fractures on my face and cranium, eye sockets, like cheek, everything. So forehead, cheek, eye socket, like they have to do full facial reconstructive surgery, right? They have to do full facial reconstructive surgery.
Did a wonderful job, by the way.
Thank you. Well,
you look great.
It turns out that the doctor that was on duty that night was like, the doctor that was on duty that night was a super famous Tucson plastic surgeon, like literally like the best doctor you could ever have was on call that night. His name was, he passed away already, but his name was Dr. Wendell Whitaker. And
God bless that man. God bless that man.
Oh yeah. I went to see him about 2 months after, because I literally had stitches across my head, like 250 stitches. And he had to take them all out, and he took all the stitches out. And as I'm leaving the doctor's office, there's a bunch of other patients there who've got all sorts of, because this guy was like a trauma plastic surgeon, right? So there's all sorts of people in the lobby with stitches all over their head, messed up in all sorts of ways, motorcycle accidents, car accidents, kids of all ages, old people, there's everybody. And there's my stupid ass walking out of the doctor's office, right? And I'm walking out, and he literally like yells over the receptionist, "Hey kid, stay out of those barroom brawls." I was like,
now go get a milkshake, kid.
He's like, stay out of those barroom brawls. I was like, all right, thanks, doc.
Let's take it from there, because that is a traumatic experience. I mean, I don't care how big a person is, how small a person is, you get hit like that square and you get 73 facial fractures and have to go through what you did. That's a lot, and it's traumatizing. And there's PTSD involved, there's psychological stuff involved, and more physical that you mentioned as well, getting up too fast. I mean, I'm complaining because of sinus problems sometimes, you know what I mean? And I get a little earache and I turn into a baby. But in your case, one of the things that I think is really important that you said a little bit earlier was that I was an asshole. Like I was a jerk. I know what I was and what I could be at that time and at that age. And aren't we all, right? I mean, we all have those moments where we can play Monday morning quarterback and assess the situation after the fact and say, okay, look, I could have done better here. Or, I wasn't necessarily the best person, but you recognize that. I think that's the huge thing right now. And then of course it's led to you learning from it and becoming a better person for it. I mean, because I knew you before then, and I already knew that you were a great person. And so talk to me about like the lesson learned in that sense and how it has changed your life.
Right before this happened, I was finishing up my second year as a teacher. And I was finishing up my second year as a teacher at Nogales High School. And and about a week before this happened, I got into a huge like argument with one of the school administrators. The principal at the school, she didn't like me very much, and the principal didn't like me very much. I was a second year teacher. Obviously, like I was pretty much told like, we don't want you back, and I said, okay, fine. So then the assistant principal at that time, I was supposed to do a field trip with some students, and he came up to me and he goes, "You're not going on the field trip." So why not? And he goes, "Well, you're just not going. We decided to get somebody else and whatever." So we got into like this heated argument, and we got into this pretty heated argument. And I grew up in Nogales, just like you grew up in El Paso, but
Yep.
Nogales is a much smaller town than El Paso, right? So literally, like, I know a bunch of people.
Right.
So the assistant principal is like, "Well, you realize that you don't have a job next year, right? Like, you realize like we don't want you back." And I was like, "Well, don't worry about that." I said, "I know a ton of people in Nogales. Like, I'll get a job tomorrow. Like, it's not a big deal, right?" So we get into like just a back and forth, and I remember one of the things that I told him. He got super pissed. Is that he told me, he's like, "All the kids just call you by your last name. They just call you Luna. They don't call you Mr. Luna. There's no respect there." And I told him, I'm like, "There's a bunch of other teachers that only get called by their last name. Are you also telling them that?" And he goes, "I would never allow any kid to just call me by my last name," which is complete BS because every single kid in school called him just by his last name. And this is right about the time, I don't know if you remember, but Bobby Knight had an incident where he tried to choke a couple of kids at Indiana University because they called him, because it said, "Hey, Knight."
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I said, "Well, that's the difference between you and me." I said, "I don't have a Bobby Knight complex." Yeah. And he got super pissed, right? So this was like a couple of weeks before this happened to me, right? So then this happens to me. I'm sitting at the hospital. I have no job, right? I have no job, and I'm sitting at the hospital, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? I wanted to do my master's in history, and that wasn't gonna work out, and I have like no plan, and I'm like, what the hell do I do? So I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna figure out the next couple of months, recover, and then get a job, right? So this happens in May. I'm recovering in June. Finally, like in July, I go out with some friends. We go out to a place in Mexico and we're hanging out, and I haven't been out in 2 months, and I'm just seeing people, saying hi and whatever. And this guy who's a friend of mine, he's still a friend of mine to this day. He worked at the school. He comes up to me and he goes, "Where have you been, man?" And I go, "What do you mean, where have I been? Like, you didn't hear?" And he's like, "Everybody's been looking for you." And I'm like, "Whoa." And I'm like, "Who?" He's like, "Everybody at school's been looking for you. Where have you been?" So, "In the hospital, dude. Like, in the hospital, at my house. Like, I got my ass kicked." And he goes, "Well, the principal got fired, and the assistant principal got fired, and they hired so and so and so and so, and these were two teachers that I worked with,
Yeah.
and they want you back. So give them a call. So fuck, I've got no job. So I go over to the school on Monday, and I have a heart to heart with the new principal. She goes, "Look, you really need to change, right? Like, she's like, I like you, but you need to change, and like, you need to just calm down and learn, and like, take people's advice, and like, just calm down, right?" And
So did you have, what was it then? I mean, like, just pause on that one, because like when you have that self-assessment, like what was it that everybody else had a problem with that you didn't recognize at the time
I
when they
think it
were
was
kind of
just
holding that mirror up?
yeah, no, it was just a matter of thinking that I knew everything, that I knew better than everybody else, that you couldn't tell me what to do because um, I'm the popular teacher. I'm the young teacher. I'm the one that is out there, and I know what I'm doing, and I know I'm teaching history, and I know a shitload of history, way more than you do, and uh, and it was just like this attitude of like, you can't teach me anything. There's
I can
nothing.
relate to that. Yeah, no, I think I can relate to that because I started my career really early. Like after I left Hawaii, I was fortunate enough to start sports writing. I was just a stringer for the local paper. And, I would have delivered the damn thing if they told me to. I mean, I loved that job so much. I went from waiting tables to now getting paid to go to games and write about them, college sports, in some cases pro. And just really enjoying that and just doing what we're doing now, just having good conversations with people and then just sharing the story, right? But I was always the youngest one there. Like in the press pool, I was always like the kid. When the Cowboys came to El Paso to play the then Houston Oilers, it was a scrimmage in the Sun Bowl, sold out, 52,000 people going to watch a scrimmage game. I was on the sidelines. And so I got to interview Cowboys players and be there and just experience it. And that was such a cool thing, but I was always like the kid. And so I always had this little chip on my shoulder. So I totally can relate to that because I remember having that kind of an attitude early on. And then getting back to the original point here, getting your ass kicked can humble you.
Oh yeah.
It can teach you. It can make you more aware of the bigger picture, maybe. And in my case, getting my ass kicked was what it meant. In from a professional sense, it meant getting out scooped. The guy from the other paper or the competing station or something like that, getting the story and not me. And I was at the same place. So, not fully doing my job, but just being there for the glory, maybe, or seeing a name in my name in print or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and not understanding fully what my job was really, why I was there, and to inform and to educate and do the best job that I could as a reporter, right? And then certainly in our personal lives, as you mentioned before, we all go through those downs. I've talked about that on this channel before too, the ups and the downs, and what do we do when we're down, and why is it that creative people sometimes do their best work when they're down? That was another topic that we covered here too. But in your case, you are now having a conversation with this principal. They're basically telling you, look, you got to change. And so what did you have to change, and how did you start executing it?
No, well, I mean, it was just about changing my attitude, like coming in to school and having a different attitude towards my colleagues, like, and because really, like, my I never had any issues with my teaching or with like my students or anything like that. It was just my attitude towards my colleagues, and that I had, especially like just a lot of like antagonistic behavior towards maybe some of my colleagues that I didn't get along with, or adamant, or like refusing take advice, or, you know, and she basically said, look, you have to change. Like, we want you back, but you have to change. Like, you have to want to get better. You have to listen to people that are trying to help you. Like, you don't know it all. Essentially, like, they gave me a second chance. Like, they gave me a second chance. They said, we want you back. We're giving you a second chance. Like, don't blow it, right? So I came back, right? And to be honest, like, when I first started teaching, I didn't really think I was going to teach for more than a couple of years. Like, I thought, I'll go in here, I'll teach for a couple of years, and then I'll go on and do something else. Well, now I just finished my 21st year of teaching, and so 2 years in my mind turned into 21 years, but I didn't come back for that third year. I wouldn't have come back for that third year unless I would have gotten that second chance. So once I came back that third year, not only did, like, I come back, but they said, oh, and by the way, like, you're gonna have to be a traveling teacher, and there's not enough classrooms in the school that I work at. So some teachers have to travel from one classroom to another. Yeah. And I had been a traveling teacher my first year. And then my second year, I had my own classroom. So now I'm going back to being a traveling teacher. And
more humbling experience.
Yeah. So that's like another kick right there. And they're like, yeah, we gave your classroom away. So you're going to have to travel again. I was like, it doesn't matter. So it ended up happening that now I'm traveling, and I get to see, you know, different teachers teach, because I am a traveling teacher, right? And I have to, you know, watch, you know, the old English teacher and the old math teacher and the old science teacher, whatever. And I get to see what they do, and I get to learn from them. And that's the end of, like, and that's like my third year. And then at that point in time, I'm also starting my coaching career. Right. I'm also starting my coaching career, which you know, I'm coaching soccer, which, again, that second year, again, I sort of also had like a little chip on my shoulder because I thought that I should have been coaching varsity soccer. And I was like, I know way more than the head coach. He's never played, he's never done, and I should be coaching varsity soccer. And they made me the assistant. And I kind of had a chip on my shoulder till the head coach actually grabbed me and said, look, man, like, I know you know more than I do about soccer. He goes, but you don't know more than I do about coaching. He goes, right. So he's like, I've coached football, I've coached a ton of stuff. And he goes, you don't know about coaching, and you're not ready to be a head coach. And I was like, this guy, I can't believe it. You know, like, I can't believe he's telling me this. But he was right. Like, yeah. He was right.
And when did you notice that? When did you find out that he was right?
When
Pre-accident, pre-punch, or
no. I noticed he was right pre-punch. So I ended up, that wasn't bothersome, but that wasn't as bothersome, but it was like, okay, I'm an assistant coach. If I leave, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, right. I didn't really talk very much. I just kind of like, I'll deal with my team. You deal with your team. I got the JV, you got the varsity. I'm going to prepare my team and you prepare your team. And, like, you know, that mentality that we're not working, again, not that attitude that I'm talking about. Like, we're not working together. Like that attitude that I had to change, right? That it's not just me. Like, this is a school, this is a sports program. That's the attitude that I had to change. Like, it wasn't me against everybody. It was just like, we're all trying to achieve the same goal, right? At the end of the day. So that first year I was like, I'm going to show him, man. I'm going to coach my JV so well that we're going to kick varsity's ass. And most of the time we did. Right. But that wasn't the goal of the program. So the second year, once I come back post-punch, I come back and I have like this attitude shift, and I was like, all right, what can I do to help you? Like, what can I do to help you? So that that second season, it's like I start getting a little bit more involved in the decision making. I'm still not calling the shots, but I'm telling the coach, "Hey man, you should do this. Hey, I think this guy needs a sub. Blah blah blah, blah, blah whatever." And by the third season, he's kind of stepping back more and allowing me to make more of the decisions, get more involved in the game, and by the end of that third season, he says, "All right, you're ready.
Yeah.
Let's switch roles."
You went through this humbling experience, a physical traumatic experience, but professionally now it's a humbling thing because it's almost like you got kicked back to the minor leagues. You go and you're a traveling teacher again. You don't have a classroom anymore. But now you're learning. So now you're rebuilding a foundation. So is it fair to say that while you were healing physically, you were also rebuilding yourself personally at the same time?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it was definitely rebuilding myself personally. It was that summer after what happened. It was a lot of highs and lows. It was a lot of like going into these like depressing states of mind. You start thinking like, why did this happen to me? Why? What did I do? Why did this happen to me? Why, like, what did I do to deserve this? And what, so you start like, you get into these depressing states of mind, and then you come out of them, and then you go back and you come out of them. And one of the things like that I experienced that summer was that like I realized that a bunch of people that I hadn't talked to in a long time actually like that they actually like cared about me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was all these highs and lows. There was this girl that I was friends with for a long time, and she called me up one day, and we went to school together for a long time. And she called me up one day, and she's like, "Hey, I heard about what happened, and I haven't spoken to her in years." And she goes, "I heard about what happened. Let's go to lunch." And so I meet her up for lunch. I haven't seen this girl since like we graduated high school, right? Like I went to Hawaii, she went to U of A. I came back from Hawaii. She was going to law school in Minnesota. Like I started my teaching career. She's like a lawyer, whatever, and she just happened to be in town. And she's like, "Yeah, I heard about what happened. Let's go to lunch." So we go to lunch, and we end up talking. And at the end of lunch, she gives me like a book that I've never heard of, which is like really dumb because apparently everybody had heard of this book except for me. But she gives me a copy of The Alchemist. And I was like, she's like, "Read this book, it'll change your life." And I was like, "I've never heard of it." She's like, "What do you mean you've never heard of it? You have to change it. Like, you have to read it." It was definitely nice to see that like there were people out there who reached out that I hadn't talked to in years that would pull you out.
And you've become one of those people now. Because you can't go through an experience like this and not have some recognition looking back. I mean, here you are 20 plus years deep into a career that you didn't think you'd be there for more than a few in the first place, but here you are, you've become really good at what you do. You obviously care. You've got some of the funniest stories about the classroom. I mean, every teacher does, right? I mean, I've definitely always thought that those were funny. But do you see your old self in other people as they start their careers? Or how does that work? How's your attitude towards when you see your old you in somebody else?
What I've begun to do with new teachers who need guidance, or new teachers who think that they taught a great lesson in their mind, but it wasn't a great lesson. Instead of giving them advice, I asked them questions, and I asked them I asked them things like, typically I have like 4 go-to questions that will basically like humble you. and it's basically like,
Do you know what last call is?
the questions that I ask to any teacher, old teachers, veteran teachers, new teachers, whatever, it doesn't matter. I ask them all the time, like, what do you want the kids to learn? What did you do to help them learn? Like, what did you personally do during that lesson to help them learn? And what evidence do you have that they learned? And the most important question, what would you do differently next time?
Right.
And those 4 questions will basically stop any person in their tracks as soon as I ask them. Because they'll be talking about, oh, I did this and it was so good and blah, 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 and all this and all that. And not once do they mention the kids. Yeah. My lesson was so good and I did this and I did that and blah. And it's like, really? Like, you did all that and you thought that was a good lesson? Oh yeah, it was a wonderful lesson. What did the kids learn? How do you know? Like, right. And then they're just like, I'm like, okay, let's go back and break it down and reflect on this, and then think about it and use it for the next lesson tomorrow. Because honestly, like, I'm not the best teacher in the world. I'm not even close to being the best teacher in the world. I've never thought of myself as being a great teacher, because if I did, then I think that I would stop trying. So I'm always trying to learn new stuff and new ways to teach things and come up with creative things and whatever, because we've all had those teachers that mail it in every day. They come in.
I know what you mean.
And they just mail it in every day. And here's your worksheet, and here's the questions, and right. And I don't want to be that guy. Like, I don't want to be that guy. And I've seen those guys, and those guys suck. And
we remember sitting in those classrooms.
Yes.
Being the student in that situation, and understanding that, okay, this guy's just a pushover. And
I don't want to be that guy. So really, when I teach my lessons, those are the questions that I also ask myself. Like, what did you do? How could you do this better? And those are not my questions. I mean, I'm like any other teacher. I steal everything, and I steal everything. And I learned those questions at some PD somewhere along the way, and I was like, man, those are really good questions.
Well, it's like anything else. We carve out our niche. We all have our lane that we're in. You know what I mean? As a writer, or as a reader of books, I like the lane. I like to be in a certain space, right? And teaching's the same way. We start developing our own styles and stuff. And you're totally right. I mean, it's just, what are we doing with the information in front of us, and how are we absorbing it? And then what's the output? Because you're in the output business. Unfortunately, there's a bottom line, and it's a grade or an assessment test here in Texas. And we talked a little bit about that. So we're in the results business no matter what. So recognizing that, I think that's really important. And also recognizing the fact that, hey, I might not be the best at what I do, but I know I'm not the worst. And if I could at least find different ways, more interesting ways of reaching these kids, so that the output there equals what my school, my state feels is successful, great. But then I think it's fair to say that a lot of your students look up to you after they get out of school. In fact, you even told me about a teacher that's at the school that used to be your student. You're starting to run into these people now because you've been in it so long. So talk about how does that feel, knowing where you've come from, knowing that this wasn't supposed to be the long-term plan for you, knowing that you had to get your literally butt kicked, your face caved in, right, in order for you to maybe change and see certain things and really learn from. And I think that's what makes you greater than good. But talk a little bit about those moments, and how did those moments solidify when a former student comes up to you and says, hey, you know what? Thank you. Right? I mean, how does that?
Oh no, definitely. Like it feels great. I mean, it feels great to get that sort of like that validation, I guess, in your job. When I do see some of those students, when they do come up to me and they're like, "Hey, Luna, what's up? How are you?"
Call me Mister.
Yeah, call me Mister. Call me Mister. Damn it. And I'm like, they're like, "Hey, I'm taking econ at the U of A, and a bunch of stuff that you taught me. Like, I got an A in the class because I already knew the stuff. I had a kid a couple of years ago who emailed me from he was at Stanford, taking an econ class at Stanford, and he's like, Luna, my professor at Stanford does everything that you do, all the same activities, everything that you do in our microeconomics class. I'm like, oh, so you're telling me that you got a Stanford education for free? Like, just one of the teachers that we just hired at my school to teach in my department, social science, was my student. Like we just hired him, and he was my student, and he's replacing another girl who was my student, and it's really weird. Like it's weird because it, like, it makes me feel really old, and but for a long time I felt like, oh, I'm the young teacher here, and I would look at the old teachers and I'd be like, oh my God, this guy and this guy. And now I'm that guy, and and I'm that guy. And it's really weird because when I was 25 and 26 and 27, the old guys were like, I guess the age I am now, which is 45, but they seemed a lot older.
Maybe we're at that age now where we can be those role models that the younger generation that are coming in, that they need to, instead of, wow, he's the old guy, it's, I want to be like that. Maybe that's what we need to do. And maybe that's how we be better and stay good, right? Or stay better than good, and in our own rights,
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
To be the example, maybe now you're the example, and now you're the example that was probably there before the punch. You know what I mean? Like the coach, perfect example. He was he exemplified what a coach was. You knew more than him about the sport, but he was a coach. And I don't know if I could teach somebody about writing. Like, I know how to do it, and I know what my style is and what I like and all of that, but I don't know if I could teach it. That's another thing altogether. And I think that's where teachers don't get the credit they deserve sometimes,
Yeah, it's definitely more than just knowing information. It's being able to convey the information. And it's the same thing like when I coach soccer. It's the same thing when I coach soccer. It's not just that I know, but it's that I know how to explain it, and I know how to get my players to do what I want them to do. Like, I'm not the best soccer player in the world. I wasn't close to being the best soccer player in the world. But but you don't need to be good. You don't need to be a good player to be a good coach. And so I'm very good at transmitting information and explaining information and doing that. So that definitely helps me in my career as a coach. So, which I'm super excited about, because I'm starting. I haven't coached in a couple of years, but I'm back to being the head coach of the the Nogales boys soccer team, and we have a lot of talent, and I'm super excited. And and it kind of, here's a perfect example of who I was before, and seeing me inside of this person, but seeing the worst version of me inside of this person. And this person has been through a lot, but he did not learn his lesson. So when I applied to be the head coach, the assistant coach, the guy who was the current assistant coach, he was first year assistant coach, he also applied to be head coach. And he's got 1 year of coaching experience. He played at a higher level than I did. All right, cool, whatever. He also applied to be the head coach, and I got the job. You look at my qualifications, you look at his qualifications. I've got coaching licenses, I've got years of experience, I've got all this, but I've done a lot of stuff. I've coached club, I for just years, and this guy hasn't done anything, right? Except 1 year of coaching, and he's played, like I said, at a higher level, not like professionally or anything, but he played some college, and he doesn't get the job, right? He doesn't get the job. And my plan was to teach this guy to do what the other guy did for me.
Right.
My plan, because I've got 6 years of teaching left. I've got 6 years of teaching, unless I decide to stay longer. But essentially, in 6 years I can retire. So I was like, look, we're going to build this program. In 6 years, we're going to just do amazing, and I'm going to teach this guy everything. I'm going to get him ready. And I said that in my interview. Like, he's a young guy. The kids like him, everything. He doesn't get the job. The AD calls him up and says, hey, you're not getting the job. We're going in another direction, but we would like you to remain the assistant coach. And he says, I'll think about it. So the AD gives me his phone number and says, hey, you got to call this guy up, talk to him, tell him blah, 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 whatever. I'm like, I get his phone number. And I'm busy, and there's some school activity going on. I'm kind of watching what's going on. There's kids playing on the practice field. We got like some spring fling going on, whatever, right? So I'm kind of I can't be on the phone talking to this guy and monitoring the situation.
Right. So
the guy tells him he doesn't get the job, gives me the phone number. The guy says, I'll think about it. 5 minutes later, I go up to the AD. I said, hey, just out of curiosity, how did he take the news? Shows me his phone and shows me a text message that the assistant coach sent. I've decided not to come back. Mm-hmm. He thought about it for 5 minutes, didn't even give me a chance to talk to him, goes on to the player group and tells all the kids, I didn't get the job. I'm not coming back next year. Take care. Leaves the player group, doesn't give the players a chance to respond, doesn't whatever. And the guy's gone. Right? So now he plays, like, this guy is still around. He plays in the city league. He plays in, this other little league that we have here. And my new players come up to me and they're like, hey, the old coach, he's talking trash about us. Look at these screenshots I got. He's saying all these things about us, blah, blah, blah. And I tell the kids, I said, well, see, now you know, it was never about you. It was about him. And when I look at this guy, I go, my God, like, I wanted to do what somebody else did for me. And you didn't give me a chance. And this guy has been through a lot. He's been through a lot in his life. I'm not going to get into his personal life because it's his business, sure. But he's been through a lot. But he didn't learn his lesson. Right. And he might need another ass kicking. And he might get it again because he got a pretty bad one the first time. But he didn't learn his lesson. And he might now need a worse one. and maybe then he'll become humbled, because the first time he definitely did not learn any humility. And like
that's the key. That's the key right there. It's the humility factor, that humble factor. And I think we also have to understand that some people won't learn. You know, not everybody will, unfortunately. I mean, I know people today who are lining themselves up for multiple butt kickings now, whether it's physical, just some kind of adversity. I mean, we all fall. We all fall. At some point in our lives, we face something, some more intense than others, right? But at some point in time, we all go down. And it's, are we going to get back up? And when we get back up, because we will, how different are we going to be? How are we going to learn from it? And how are we going to move forward? And in your case, pay it forward. You wanted to do that. But I think at some point we have to also realize that it's not always going to be the happy ending when the credits roll and everybody's smiling and the after school special's over and it's great. And we can wait for next week's episode where, whatever happens and then they resolve it in 30 minutes. You know what I mean? That's just not the way life is. But Hugo Luna, I appreciate you. And I appreciate the fact that you did learn and that you're still trying to pay it forward. Because even in that situation, those kids got the real story, in the forms of those texts. And I just hope that, for your season to be great. But I think that the fact that you're on those sidelines, the fact that you're in this profession for so long now, that we're talking today and that you're sharing something that was traumatic and it happened to you, I think the experience overall has made you probably a better person. I always knew you as a great one, but and we didn't even get into the dad that you are. And I think we will the next time we meet. And there's going to be a next time. So, we're recording this, man. It's going to be marked in history forever. Internet don't lie. So there will be a next time because there's just more. We could talk forever, but I just definitely thank you so much for sharing this one today for us, man.
Oh no, it was my pleasure, man. Hopefully we can see each other again soon in person. If not,
go to one of your games, man.
Well, we play in the winter. We'll play in the winter. You're welcome anytime to come see the Nogales Apaches play. But it was definitely great to be here today, and definitely great to see you in person a couple of weeks ago.
Where I almost gave you COVID. Yeah, I know.
Hopefully we can do this again.
Awesome, man. Hey, man, take it easy.
All right. Have a good one. Thanks.
Hugo Luna, everybody. Just a wonderful guy. And I'm really thankful that he was able to share his story. I really am. I mean, it was personal. It's extremely humbling. I mean, just literally getting your butt kicked isn't the best feeling in the world. Having 73 fractures in your face and skull and having metal plates and reconstructive surgery and all of that is another story altogether. But I think the lesson here is that he recognized who he was before and maybe in some respects caused that. I don't know, but at any rate, he's a better person now, and he's a great dad, great husband, and a really great friend. So I'm happy that he was willing to come on today, share his story, and show us how he's been trying to be greater than good ever since. So with that said, I love sharing stories. It's what I do. So keep them coming to me. You can send me an email. You can direct message me, or philip@philipcortez.com. You can like this video. You can subscribe. You can share all of those things to help keep this community going, because I think we do need more stories like his, more good stories to learn from. And, not every story has a happy ending, but can we learn from that? And what can we do to be more empathetic towards one another? I think we really need to be greater than good to each other. So I'll see you guys on the next video. Have a great one.